You've been stuck in the same position for 5 years, working as an individual contributor, and you are looking to become a manager or leader in an American company, but you don't know how to do it. Today, we will tell you who a manager in the US is, what their goals, and how to transition into management, and how companies in the US look for managers. Stay tuned. I'm Anna Naumova, a principal product manager with 10 years of experience at such companies as Apple, and also a career coach for immigrants in the US. And you are on my broadcast channel. If you need to create a perfect American resume, LinkedIn profile, build a job search strategy, or overcome job interview fears and find self-confidence, visit my website, annanaumova.com, to book a call with me. All right, my guest today is Tatyana Sanikovich, an HR advisor and leadership coach with over 15 years of HR and leadership experience in the US market. She's the creator of the group coaching course called Confidence Catalyst for Leaders. Hi, Tatyana, and thanks for joining me today.
Hello, Anna. What a pleasure. As you mentioned, this is not our first time.
It's not the first time. Yeah, absolutely. This is actually like our second time in this specific channel. And if you haven't seen the previous video called The Biggest Mistakes Immigrant Managers Make in the US Workplace, please watch it because this is super insightful video if you want to be a manager in the US market and you are an immigrant. Okay, so yeah, maybe for those who haven't seen our videos before, can you please briefly share your background and tell us about yourself?
Sure, I would be happy to do that. As you introduced me, my name is Tatyana, and I've been in the States for the last 25 years in California. And my background is actually all in HR, in work. So for the last about 15 years, previously I was working in organizations as an HR director, and then transitioned to be on my own as an HR advisor and consultant and a leadership coach. And so overall, how I came to this is that I help organizations and leaders, particularly, to transition through change and challenges. And the part that I work with is to help them get more clarity, focus, and ease as they transition and kind of figuring out where to put their next step. So that's where my passion lies. And this topic, as we discuss it, is very dear, because whether you would go from independent contributor to manager or manager to director, as we discussed a little bit before, there's always that stretch to the next level within the organization. So
Perfect,
that's
perfect.
where I come through. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
perfect. Yeah, because this is the huge topic and very painful topic. I've known a lot of people who are who've been as an individual contributor for many years, and this transition gap from IC to a manager,
Yeah.
super complicated, and you need to possess specific skills to do that. And just to remind, like, if you don't know who individual contributor is, this is the employee without direct reports, and manager is kind of opposite. Okay, let's talk about managers. Who is a manager in the US, and what are their goals and objectives, and what functions do they perform?
So in my experience, the manager in the US and the companies is the glue in the organization, because the manager's functions are they connect the dots. They are the biggest bridge between the top of the organization and actually everybody else who's doing most of the work. So it's the bridge, it's the glue, whatever analogy works for you, but it is the individual who is connecting what the vision is and what the organizational strategy and goals are, and how to put them in practice and how to achieve results. So the managers, the skill, and we can get to some of the details, but they're very operational. It's like, how do we get that vision into practice to get the results that the organization wants? So they are the driver, really, to supporting the teams to deliver those goals and results from my experience. For sure.
Perfect, perfect. And we're gonna talk about achievements on resume because I work on resumes and help people to create and adjust their resumes. And managers' resumes are different than IC's resume. So that we're gonna talk a little bit later. What do they put in their resume to be
To be.
to show the greatest achievements as a managers. So, and I've also heard that managers in the US are actually people managers. Can you cover that topic?
Yeah, so sometimes, absolutely. Sometimes we could hear the word project manager and you could manage projects, for example. But and then you were definitely, you're a walking example of that as you're nodding. But even in the project management piece, you're bringing people together to make this project go forward. So in the US, absolutely, manager are generally are the people that don't just manage a function, they manage individuals, they manage human beings. So a lot of the pieces that we'll talk about is like what's involved in it and what skills and talents would be supportive of that.
Yeah, I just want to try to understand the difference between, for example, project manager, who actually manage, also consist of manager words in their title, and they kind of manage people, but in a different way than director of product, like, or project director, for example. Maybe you can even, I don't know, cover some titles to understand these differences between project manager and a real people manager, what we're going to talk today a little bit later.
Sure. So sometimes, for example, let's take different titles. So we'll take a project manager and we'll take a front office manager. So front office manager, for example, in hospitality would definitely be a people's function where the person is responsible of how the functions of the front of the house of the hotel, for example, work, how all of those people that work in the front of the house, how do they deliver the service, how they're doing as a team, what are they what are the parts like actually communicating with them, the standards and the quality of the delivery of the service, the conflicts that they're resolving with the customers. It's all about people and managing them to perform to their best ability. That would be a front office manager. And also see that the guests are receiving the experience that overall the hotel says they will receive. So that would be the front office manager. A project manager, in my experience, is the person that is leading the project. Oh, and then the part that I wanted to mention is the front office manager has the authority and the responsibility for all of the people that report to the person. So there's people reporting to the front office manager.
So front office manager is a manager. Yeah, people manager. And front office manager has direct reports, right?
Exactly.
Okay. So is it required for manager to have direct reports?
Not necessarily, actually. So it depends on the organization and what titles sometimes they choose. So it could be confusing.
Yeah.
So the structures in the organization that sometimes the titles that the organization chooses, there could be smaller organization and there are people that are managers and actually sometimes directors. And there's nobody, I've heard that, there's nobody reporting to them. So you go, well, wait a minute, how does this work? So when you are interviewing and we're looking, imagine there's definitely a plethora of things. However, on the whole, as a kind of general statement, generally a manager is in the States is the person managing, there are people directly reporting to them. So they're managing the people. When we go to the project manager piece, it's a person managing a project. But we all know that the part of that project, there are different pieces of that project. So they're moving that project forward, but they have to work with the engineers and logistics people and marketing and every department actually. So to me, project manager is a very complex and complicated role because the person has to work with everybody and get them all on board to move forward, but they have no authority over those people. They only have a responsibility to deliver the project. That is a difficult place to be. Because sometimes at least you have that lever when you manage people and they report to you, you have that lever to work with people, build relationships, but you're actually their boss. When you're project manager, you're not their boss. They're whether your peers or all over the organization, up, down, sideways. And you literally have to work, which I call it on like intangible. So it's not like physically I'm your boss, but you create it's very heavily relational. You have to build relationships and work through those to get your work done. But sometimes people take it different ways.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's enough of a lever, and sometimes it's not.
Yeah, it's super
So that's the part.
confusing. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's super confusing, especially for immigrants who are moving into the US from different countries, where managers
Yeah.
like define as a manager, people manager, and this is super confusing for in the US market for those immigrants because
Yeah.
I've
I
heard
can
like,
see.
oh, I'm a project manager. I'm a manager. And I said, no, you're not a manager. You're just a project manager. You don't have direct reports. You don't have other project managers who you manage. Yeah, so that's like super confusing, and I wanna like kind of understand this,
Clarify this more.
clarify that, and bring a little bit more clarity to that. Perfect. Okay, so individual contributors, no direct reports, managers,
People
direct
managers have
reports,
direct reports. Yes.
direct and authority. Okay, so can you maybe give me a few other examples of managers, because it's not just only this title doesn't even consist the manager word. It might consist of like director, VP, like chief of. Yeah, can you give
So
me
generally,
more?
actually, as you get
Yeah,
high in the organization, generally, again, because I've had some startups where there's a director and there's no people reporting to them. So kind of like put those
in a
aside.
startup you can create your own title.
And
Yeah,
that's
whatever
kind
you
of what
want.
I'm
Yeah.
realizing. But overall in organizations, the minute you actually become a director and above, you're always going to have people reporting to you in some ways. Because when you get to that level, you are managing functions of the organizations or like whole departments, whole deliver like the big pieces. There are always people who are delivering those. So you can, generally there is that if there's a clear hierarchical structure, then you will have a manager and then you'll have a director. You know what I mean? And then you probably, just depend how big the organization is, then you might have a VP and a CEO. So once you get to the director level, it becomes the parts that we're going to talk about, how to manage people successfully, becomes more and more relevant and more important. Because as you come higher in organization, if that's what you want, that's where you want to go to, those soft skills, the skills to work with people and to motivate people and to empower people and to energize them and support them and encourage them, those become your primary ones besides the visioning and the strategy. So that's the
Perfect.
part of the
Yeah.
organization. Yeah.
That's actually my next question about the quality. Like, what qualities should a person have to become a manager? I'm just wondering, like, does anyone, can anyone become a manager, or you should possess specific personal qualities? And can you even train that qualities?
So great question. The short answer to me is, can anyone can try, absolutely. So it's not like don't even try. However, this is a great step. Before I get into the qualities, it's a great step that I've seen both ways, where when you come from an independent contributor, when you're doing a function, you're performing just a function and no people are reporting to you, and you decide, or the organization encourages you, it's better when you decide, to be quite honest, because that shift from no people factor reporting to you to people factor reporting to you is a huge stretch for people, and an uncomfortable one for the most part, a lot of times. So sure, there's always exceptions. And the reason being, because then you, at the beginning, it might feel like you're babysitting a lot. That's the word that's used a lot. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not doing my job. I am literally holding everybody's hand. And sometimes that happens, but that's where those skills that we're going to discuss come in really handy and important. But that's a stretch, because once you go to the director, you've already had some experience. But this space for yourself, what I want to bring forward is have compassion, honestly, and patience with yourself, because this shift is a big shift. And this could be a shift where you learn that's not my thing, for example. I actually just want to deliver a product, a function, a thing, and I just want to do my thing. And it's absolutely okay. But this is a great space. It's a great sandbox to find out for yourself what's important to you and how you want to navigate it. And there's no right or wrong, to me, answer. It's a great, I mean, I've coached leaders who've come to be directors, and now they're like, I think I want to go back to the independent contributor in some way. Like, how do I do this? It's a bit harder once you become higher in the organization, just because it's like, how do you laterally go into just in like doing a function versus people? And generally, they're actually good people leaders. They're just tired. So that's a different, that's a different topic that we can cover another time. So coming
It's
back to
about,
the,
two qualities. Yeah,
yeah.
I'm just
So
like,
coming back to the
yeah.
qualities, so I kind of put out, like, there's about 6, 7 that I'm just going to discuss. So the first one is a leadership quality. So it's the ability to inspire and motivate others. We do that different ways, but it's really important, because you as a people manager, that's what you're doing. You're literally motivating and inspiring people to get to the goals or get the results that you need. And there's various ways to do that. That number
How,
one.
how to learn it and how to understand like that, because leadership, you cannot even measure that.
What you can measure is how people respond to you when you are with them in the room. You can measure how people, do they stand behind you or do they get resistant to when you speak to them? So, for example, you can measure by your own, who were the people and who are the people that when you listen to them, when you work with them, you want to create something, or you want to support, or you want to deliver from here, from inside, not because it's just a checkbox, and not because, well, I'm going to get a paycheck for it. You can get things done. It won't last you long. It won't sustain. So how do you find internal? And so what I'm saying is, like, yeah, that's a skill that and we'll go into detail, kind of like where, to get more of them. Find those that inspire and motivate you. And they don't have to be in your own organization. You don't have to work with them. But who do you listen to? Who are you when you're in the room with them? You walk out and you just you have a fire in your belly.
Oh, I
And
have some people like that.
exactly. So, and how do they connect? Like, watch them. How do they connect to others? Just watch, observe. So at the beginning, and we'll see how we transition,
Mm-hmm.
it's like they just watch people.
Mm-hmm.
Watch,
Mm-hmm.
reflect, take notes, but measure it on yourself. What works for you? Because you are already somewhere in your life. You're not 5 where you just, so you've achieved and you've been around enough people where you walk out and you're full of energy. Or
Mm-hmm.
from some conversations, you walk out and you've got none. Those are
Perfect.
great signifiers. So that's
Okay,
leadership.
perfect.
That's number
Leadership.
1.
Okay. Number
Number
2.
2 is communication. Like, I can't highlight enough of the communication piece, which is clear, concise, effective communication skills. And, I work with leaders on that in organizations, and I don't think there's any end to it, to keep learning and improving some things. Sometimes it's a lot of things. Sometimes it's just fine-tuning things, but it makes a huge difference. And communication is a part of emotional intelligence kind of toolbox. And so that's kind of the bigger piece, where empathy, communication, those, and I'm going to talk about it a bit. So communication, clear, empathetic, to the point. What are you consistent? Consistency with communication is one of the biggest things that gets missed because we are in our own head. We've talked to somebody and we think everybody else is in our own head as well. It's like they're not in your heads.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't
This,
over communicate enough. Yeah.
this is actually probably one of the most complicated for immigrants. This is a language barrier first
Exactly.
and cultural difference. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we touched a bit on that, but exactly, that's like a separate topic. So
Yeah,
the
and you
third,
need to learn it like over many years. It's not a quick solution for that.
it's
Yeah.
not, but it's definitely requires your focus and commitment to be like, I will be doing this. And there's practices and things that, you know, we can do a whole thing on
Yeah.
communication later. So that's number 2 is
Mhm.
communication. Into it, kind of like number 3, but empathy. That's, I think, is also a lot of times actually hard in cultural shifts and immigrants, and particularly those coming from the Eastern Bloc and post USSR, is work-wise, is understanding and addressing the needs and concerns of your team members. So it's literally putting yourself in the shoes of other, and it's work related, but it's very human. You have to be quite human, which is quite difficult because that's for the manager. It's kind of like all the time.
Fair, fair. And I've probably asked that question before, but I will ask you that
Yeah.
again. Can you train and improve your empathy?
We did talk about it. That is one of the hardest emotional intelligence pieces to train on. I believe you still can, unless actually the person is a very classic quite to be classic narcissist. They don't have any of it, and they're not wired that way, and they don't see the need. So as long as the person sees the need, and that's kind of all the time that I have in my work with clients and organizations, if a person is willing to learn and change, and they see that there needs to be something, not somebody told them, they want that. Yes, it's possible. It's hard. This one is a hard one. It's
It's hard
definitely a hard
one,
one.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that there are a lot of people, successful people with such a personality disorder without even empathy, but they're super successful. So
Yes, because they see
did
the goal and they see no obstacle. So you
okay,
know, that's a very different. So they see no obstacle, and so they move with no obstacle. They
yeah,
also have this a lot of times successful people that have very little empathy or lack empathy, they have very little fears,
yeah.
actually,
But they
for
do have a
himself
lot
and
of
others.
other
Yeah,
qualities like charisma.
exactly.
Yeah. What else? Like communication skills, I think
It's your
is like,
classic narcissist.
yeah. Charisma and communication skills. Okay. Quality
Exactly.
number
So
4.
quality number 4 is problem. I'm kind of combine them: problem solving and decision making.
Mm-hmm.
So as a manager, you will be, you know, you have to have a capacity and capability to make informed and timely decisions. So that's another piece. As you managing a project or something, you're also making decisions, but you're kind of dependent on other players because you know you're not the ultimate. As a manager, you're also not the ultimate, depends on your structure with your director, but you have a lot more autonomy, and you need to have that ability and the skill to make decisions. Depends on the environment, how fast paced and kind of just how quickly the environment is moving and what autonomy you're given. That's a piece that needs to be happening in a kind of timely manner. And so the same with problem solving. Now you're not just solving for the project, you're solving for what's happening, and then you're supporting your team members to problem solve all the time. So that's a skill, but that comes with life a lot of times. So that's where the growth mindset actually really helps, and the open mind approach, as opposed to this is just one lane to figure this
Mm-hmm.
out. Trust me, more like several minds is better than one. And sometimes we as managers and directors and all, like crisis management or something is happening and you have to make a quick decision. But as you can involve the team in your decision making, we can talk about that, the skills. That's one of the ways to motivate and empower the team, is to involve them in some of the problem solving and decision making. But you've got to have that ability yourself. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
a
skill. Yeah.
challenging one. Yeah, yeah.
And I
Okay.
think the next the and I think with problem solving, so one is I have adaptability and flexibility. So as a manager, and that glue and the bridge that you are, there's constant changes. And guess what? You're the one translating the changes from the top, or the communication or decisions, to how to deliver and to everybody who is working on that. And depending again on the culture of the organization, those can be changing all the time. And if you've noticed, our world is speeding up, and the changes in the world just overall around us and the environment are much faster. So that ability to be flexible, so not stuck in your ways. So release the knuckles, I call them, kind of like the fists and the knuckles, like release the knuckles. So don't get really attached. So this is what I think is current days, the perfectionism. I'll step aside. I call it a little squirrel. So perfectionism and control are having they're reaping the havoc, I would say, on people who hold that really tight, because those two qualities get you so wound up and so tight in constantly changing environments, that those are one of the biggest things I work with, actually, with clients. Is releasing the knuckles, I call it, which is really hard.
And
But
yeah,
it's very doable. This one is a
this
lot more
is
doable than empathy.
empathy. Yeah, yeah, because I think empathy is more natural, or you
Yes.
can imitate it. Yeah. And talking
Yeah.
about adaptability and flexibility is a useful skills for everyone, not just the leaders.
Anything.
I think like
Anything.
for any
Exactly.
professional, it's important to be like flexible. Yeah.
So absolutely. And the last
Perfect.
one, I kind of
Last
keep
one.
it in the little basket, is integrity. But I keep, I think, integrity for all levels. It starts with us as a human being, is that part is like you do what you say you will do, and you're consistent with it. And you're not changing your mind all the time. You're not, like, that's the biggest piece. Once you start managing people, that I think people find the harder time. They're in the spotlight a lot more than when they were managing a project, meaning there are other human beings that are watching your behavior. Yes, that is what happens. And as higher in the organization you get, the more your behaviors and what you say and what you do really matter. Like, those are the fine tuning skills and abilities that are kind of, how do you quantify that? You do it by time. But those things go a long way. So start practicing now.
Yeah, that's a great six quality you should possess to be a great
Mhm.
leader in American companies. Like, just to recap: leadership skills, communication skills, empathy, problem solving and decision making, adaptability and flexibility, and integrity and consistency. Yeah, I like actually the last one. I think it's super important, and not everyone talks about it. So yeah, I haven't heard a
Yeah.
lot about these, like consistency is super important. If your manager is kind of not self-conscious and doing a lot of things and changing their mind all the time, it's awful. Yeah,
Well, that's
it's awful.
awareness, and I'll touch
Yeah,
base on awareness, and that's I work a lot with, is your awareness as a person. What are you doing, and what are the consequences,
yeah,
benefits or consequences of that behavior? So as a manager, there are other people, and that's why I love working with leaders, because there are other people that depend on them. So their life kind of, and the quality of it, um, it affects them. So I want all of the leaders to be aware of that, and the things that don't work, how to shift them, so then everybody is in much more harmony, and we actually enjoy
yeah.
the work that we do with people that we do it with.
Hmm. So that's the next question might be weird. I'm just thinking, why should I become a manager?
That's a
So,
great question.
sounds super complicated and
Um,
like
I think to me, so it's on with that, and that's the part we touched base a bit earlier. It's a great question. I think on one part, if you care, so there's several things I want to say. Number one is if you care about people generally, that's just something of your quality. So I am just like in HR, obviously, I didn't end up in it randomly. We can think about it that way, but it's not random. Like I always wanted to be a bridge, like an interpreter, whether between cultures or languages, or now it's people. I could be speaking the same language, but within the organization, it's interpreting different levels. So if that's something that matters to you, which it always mattered to me, then it's more genuinely fitting your values. Like connection is a value for me. So connecting with people and having people connect with each other would be important in my work and life. If you are really thinking of growing your career that way in the organization, I believe you will get to the point that you will be managing people no matter what. So if you're not managing people and you don't want to do it, you will hit some, in a sense of a ceiling, at least within the organization. You can go on your own and do whatever you decide, and you won't hit probably financial or some, growth ceiling. But if you're in the organization at some point, that is a part of it. A part of it is taking on a team.
Mhm.
And so that's that would be number two. And number three is you like a challenge. You like a challenge. It also could be like, why, like not like why not, but yeah, try it. Try a challenge. You might actually be like, oh, I like this, I don't like that. It will stretch you, just like parenting to me. It's like once you're in, there's great days and then there's very challenging days. But did it change me as an individual? Is it my best like personal growth tool? Yeah, absolutely. I have a 17-year-old, and it's like every day as I'm trying to want to be and becoming a better parent, I know I'm becoming a better individual. And to a degree, to be quite honest, managing people at some levels in some organization it's like parenting 101. We're all children in grown bodies, and we all think we're so grown and we're such adults. And yet when challenges come, when stress hits, when pressure hits, we all, unless we practice an awareness and certain presence, is we just go to the default of whatever our middle school years, our high school years. And that's where it becomes very difficult to manage people, could become challenging to manage people, because in the stressful situations, everybody just comes to a very low, kind of the way they show up, in the kind of like the low vibrational, low way,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
the like the worst skills. They're like, where did all the skills go? They go out the door.
Yeah, you mentioned people multiple times, and your first point was care about people. I'm curious. Should you love people or even be interested in people to be a manager?
I don't think, I mean, this is great. You don't have to love people, but actually, as you just said, but to me, it's important to be interested in people. It's important to be curious about what is important to others. So that's kind of back to empathy as well. But it's also those levels of curiosity and interest and engagement. If you really don't care, don't do it, because you will be miserable and you'll make others miserable.
That's fair. Okay, so we discussed a lot of soft skills.
Mhm.
Just to recap: leadership, communication,
Yeah.
empathy, problem solving, adaptability, integrity. Care about people, and does it like is it any specific hard skills that I should possess to be a manager? Does this role depends on the work experience or education? Let's talk about hard skills.
So it could be both, but actually in my experience, it all came with experience. I haven't worked with, Yeah, I haven't worked with someone who just, a lot of times MBA is mentioned, but that's mainly actually when you get to more like a director level that you might need more of those business skills. But now they actually teach a lot more soft skills in all of the programs because that's realization comes like those are the most important. But to me, it all comes with experience. It's people, it's interactions, it's communication, it's figuring out what your style is, what's your style with this team, what works for you, how do you interact. So if you have at least a humble mindset and a learning, so that's back to growth mindset, it's back to curiosity, it's the interest is going, I want to learn. You will learn these things. But if you come in and be like, I just graduated, even like, let's say I graduated with a human resources, degree or MBA, and I know better, that will get you in trouble from my point of view. Sure, you might grow an organization, but that doesn't get you connection with people. It doesn't get you it doesn't get you to be an inspiring and motivating leader. That comes with other skills and still understanding the business and understanding how things work. But really, to me, it kind of experience trumps it, or just how you are, what your qualities as a person, what matters to you. So when I interviewed before as an HR director, I would ask open-ended questions and I would really ask about personal values. Like, I want to know what matters to this individual. So just like what I'm saying, my example is connection. So if I hear something like that, right, or what matters to people, or something that's people related, or relationship, or connection, or just how people tick, figuring out like what makes them kind of come together, how to get them together, what's the team somebody like really likes. There's amazing people that like they build unbelievable teams. That's a skill that, trust me, didn't come like this. It really didn't come from like I read 20 books and then now I know how to do it. And then you show up, it's like a sandbox. It's like all of us, it's back to parenting. You show up and there's all these personalities. What you gonna do with this? Nobody tells you because you gotta figure it out. So to me, it's a lot of it is majority of it is experience.
Experience. Is it specific level of education that or degree that can help me to become a manager? I've heard like some statement like people go into I don't know, have a MBA, for example, Stanford MBA and the goal is to become a manager. Is it a
I
good
would say no.
strategy? No.
So in again, back to, I always found it's like in my experience, an MBA is really good. Actually, sometimes it can work if that's what you would like to do. Once you actually get past the manager to the director level, it's something that gives you a more well-rounded vision of how different parts of the organization and the business work and all of those pieces. But necessarily getting and paying for an MBA just to become a manager, I don't think it's a great investment, to be quite honest. But going through some leadership courses and doing some things online, there's a lot cheaper programs, and reading books and actually watching some, like as much, like find an inspiring and motivating person and listen to them. They don't have to be in your circle. They could be out in the world, on YouTube. Like for example, like I listen to Brene Brown a lot or Simon Sinek a lot, so it's like, and not all the time, but they're just nuggets. And like I went and saw Simon Sinek a while back live. And I remember sitting in a big auditorium in San Francisco and feeling that feeling. I was like, he can hold the audience, but everything he says resonates with me. So I walked away from, I don't remember, 2 hours of something, and Q&A and all that stuff, super inspired and really motivated to do the work that I do. And so that's finding those. So yeah, I don't think MBA is essential.
Okay, so instead of paying a lot for Stanford MBA, just find the leaders that you like and appreciate, and find like managers in companies you like, and watch their interviews, watch their pitches, and like everything.
Yeah,
That
watch
can
how they
help.
speak. Yeah, and we'll talk about it think also like, how to make that transition, like mentor, which maybe, yeah, anyway, I'll come to it, the mentorship piece as well
Yeah,
later.
let's talk about it. Let's talk about transition. I think it's a really smooth transition in our interview to start talking about transition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, let's say I'm an individual contributor for many years, and I started thinking about it. Really, I just got stuck of being IC, and I want to do something more. I maybe walk through your list of the qualities. I'm pretty like have a good communication. I like people. I have empathy. Blah blah blah. So what next should I do? I feel
What
that I'm ready. Yeah. What?
Great. So
Yeah.
one of the things is to start with, if it's with the same organization, is to speak to your manager or to your director, to whoever your manager is. To me, the first step is letting, that's more an HR term, putting people on notice, but letting people know you are interested in something. Because for me as a leader, the more informed I am for what my people want to do, it's every leader should be having those conversations. But anyway, this is the communication, the two-way communication. Let them know. And then also see whether they are supportive, at least visually, in that conversation or not. Because that's something also to watch. And then we can talk about, sometimes it's internal, sometimes you have to go external. So this would be the piece where I want to kind of anchor it. If you talk to your manager and your manager says, yeah, I hear you, but actually you're really good at what you do, and I don't think you're going to like that. They try to dissuade you, or you could feel it that they're like, yeah, that sounds great, but you could feel there's a block, like there's just a wall. And when you try other things that we'll talk about, you're getting resistance. That's the place where you probably would need to go externally to become a manager, because it is really hard in the organization to go around your manager.
Perfect, perfect. So the first I should do is to go to my manager, express my interest, and
Yes.
listen to the feedback. If it's not super positive, it means that it's not a good time. At least now, I might be able to wait for the next 6 months. Maybe really it's not a great time right now. It's not an opening position. If I can wait for the next 6, 12 months and try again.
So let me just go through some things. If you were to transition within the organization, we'll go through some stuff, and then we'll
Okay,
come back
perfect.
to, and
Yeah,
we'll come back to the,
perfect.
and if you
Perfect,
go
perfect.
externally, here is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you talk to
perfect.
your manager, and just like as you mentioned, hey, and give some time. The part that I want to talk next of the pieces that you want is that's what I would like you to explore in that time, whether the manager is on board or not. So one is actually picking on some leadership projects. So as an independent contributor, other projects, so where can you exhibit and practice your leadership skills, right? So you could have been an independent contributor that you just deliver, and you're, I don't know, an engineer and you're just delivering something, or you're a coordinator and you're just delivering a piece. Can you raise your hand? Are there places, and not being of a mentality of, well, I don't get paid for that. That is not going to get you far from my point of view. And I've had people both ways. And the reason the minute as an HR director, when I heard people say, I don't get paid for that, that is for me, they're putting their own ceiling, and it's like, I'm not going to go to that person actually to suggest on the project. There's a fine line between, always raising your hand and always taking on projects and never being acknowledged and recognized for that. So that's a different conversation. But just be mindful where your mind is at and how open you are to just say, I'm going to try this in this role, but because how else they're going to see it. So take on a leadership opportunity. So you volunteer, just something that you go, I'm going to do it. That's number 2. And then number 3 is what you talked about, is actually studying, is taking on leadership courses, right? So you go online, you take workshops. Always check with your company. What do they offer? as a part of your ongoing education. That's one of the biggest things that retain employees these days, actually, particularly for younger generations. They're always questioning, like, what am I going to learn here? Besides my job, actually, overall, how am I going to grow as a person and how am I going to grow in my role? So what are they? Always check what are the pieces and abilities of the organization to provide educational content. Are there conferences you can go to that it's covered? Are there like networking, events that are within your, so look at all of, are there courses you can take online and get reimbursed? Check how, know your benefits, know it's not just your paycheck, but it's your responsibility to know what's offered. And it's definitely yours to realize and take on the things and keep learning. Nobody's else's. Unless you ask, most likely nobody's going to tell you. So keep asking.
Oh, that's a great advice. That is your responsibilities. I
Exactly.
tell that all the time to my
Yeah.
clients, like, this is your responsibilities, how to get your work authorization, how to immigrate to the US, how to find a job, how to have a transition, promotion, whatever. This is your responsibility. That's so true.
So the part about the developing the skills and learning, so just finding those skills, network, as I mentioned, build relationships within your company. So whoever your team is and whoever your boss is, always comfortable or uncomfortable, build relationships. Whether you're in this country or in any other country, one thing I can tell you, it's the people who get you the jobs most of the time. It's the connections. We're back to people. Whether you manage them or not, it's how you show up and back to your integrity and your consistency that people are going to remember that. So build your network, go out of your way, meet new people. But also, like, I'm also noticing it, like somebody reached out to me actually on LinkedIn, which I didn't do that as an HR director. And it's a great way to do it. Somebody reached out and said, hey, I noticed you transitioned from being an HR director to your own business, and I'm considering doing the same. Would you mind spending 15, 20 minutes with me on the call? And I don't, actually. I like that because I want people to fumble less. Like, I don't want them to have the same amount of pain or challenges maybe that I did while learning everything new. So I got on the call with this lady who is right now still an HR director in an organization. And we had a most fabulous conversation. And it's probably the person that I'll continue. I mean, I'll definitely continue staying in contact, but I think we can probably collaborate and co-create something in the future. So it's just like, think outside of your
Bubble.
company box.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When you go talk to your manager, another thing to see whether they're eager to see you, take on a manager role, if there's a role at all to take on or not, is ask for a mentor. So back again, internally and externally, you can ask for a mentor. Again, like, depending on your manager, you guys, you got to gauge. This is where emotional intelligence comes in. If you're a supportive manager, you ask for a mentor who they would recommend to be a mentor for you to actually, to grow as a leader, to grow as a manager, to grow in your skills in your department. It could be in the same company. It could be for you, if it's external, think of people back to who are motivating and inspiring to you, that you look up to. Write to them, ask them, what does it take? Can you be my mentor? What does it take? Like, if they're like, well, I don't know, start a conversation. It's back to, if you don't ask, it won't happen. It's yours. And you will totally open a completely different world. So and these are the pieces, actually, whether you're a manager, becoming a manager, or a director, all of these apply to you as a leader, period, to do them all the time.
Perfect. Yeah, let's talk about those people who currently are not employed, or their manager are not excited to promote them. Let's talk about external transition.
Yeah, exactly. So actually, a lot of times any shift in like a next level position, I think a lot more than less is easier done externally, because the company could be small enough actually that there's just so many positions, and it's like, well, the person is in that position, and so what's naturally for you to go up, it's just not available. And just like as you said, and it won't be available for however long, and you only got one precious life, so please pay attention to how you live it.
Mhm.
So that's one thing. And so going externally, and maybe like the interview piece. So the part is like, I've hired people from an individual contributor to a manager, not to manage a huge team, but a small team, to sound like a taster, right? But when I interviewed them, I asked for actually all of these pieces that I just mentioned. Even as an independent contributor, have you done any leadership pieces? They could be volunteering outside of the organization and leading huge actual efforts and huge missions. Like they've done this event that they volunteer for a hunger, for example, a food bank, right? And they organize this, I don't know, this meal on Thanksgiving for 100 people. And they are the person who runs the whole event. Yeah, they manage 100 people under a very stressful environment. So pay attention to that. It's not just what they do at work, which actually I just realized. It's actually, what do people do outside? Ask them what their interests are. How do they contribute to this world? What makes them tick? What makes a difference in their life? And so if seeing people, coming to work engaged and inspired, or just kind of making sure that those things connect, and they're actually trying to bring more joy into this life, seriously, and they're positive with the way they see the world, and they want to make a better world, they will do their best to figure out
Mhm.
how other people's
Mhm.
tick, right? And
Mhm.
so back to the external piece. When you go out, don't be afraid. Just think of the things. I had a mentor. I've done this project. It's back to what you do, is how do you put things on your resume? And that's how what you coach as well, people. How do you speak about your experience, that no, at this job, you didn't manage 5, 10, 15 people, but you, sometimes it's like you're a parent of more than one child. I mean, one child is enough. I have one, it's enough. But if you manage more than one child or household with your parents and everybody else, you're managing people all the time. You've got to remember that, right? Or like you're helping in your kid's school and you're in a PTA, like you're doing all of these things. That is all leadership. My thing with people is like, do you raise your hand to go, let me try this? And then when you do it, what do you learn? Do you have a reflective nature and enough self-awareness to go, here's what I learned, here's what I can keep, here's what I can change, and here's what I can just leave, right? And so that's, to me, is why externally, actually, a lot of times it's easier to jump, particularly actually from manager to director, to be quite honest, because you're
Yeah,
already
but
the
we are,
people.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. But so far we are talking about
yeah,
individual
independent
contributors,
contributing to
yeah,
manager.
to
Yeah.
manager. So, and I think that's great. So you can just raise your hand and said, "Let me try that." But
Mhm.
I'm thinking that in a current market situation with a lot of layoffs, companies are looking for unicorn, looking for specific. People with specific knowledge exactly matched to the job description, and they usually said, we are looking for a manager with, I don't know, like 3+ years of
5 years experience. Yeah.
experience being a manager or managing, I don't know, like 5 people, just exact requirements. What should I do with that? How should I overcome these requirements if I don't have this experience? What
I mean,
might be a
one
strategy?
thing that comes to mind is, well, first of all, there's now AI tools that are scanning your resume. So if it doesn't say, if nothing says it, you're not even going to make it to the first, through the recruiter. If you made it to the first, at least a conversation, what's going to matter is how you speak about yourself and your experience. Where is your confidence? And therefore, as you mentioned, it's like the confidence catalyst for leaders that I do the group coaching course that I'm going to start in September. That is a part of it. You work with your imposters, and we work with your imposter syndrome. We work with, that confidence piece. We work with the way you present yourself and how you speak. You can slow down, just like what I'm doing right now, so people pay more attention. But I think for me, the biggest thing then is, if you don't have any of that experience and you notice that you don't get called because it's not even picking up, but if you get called, find an internship, find a volunteer gig where you are managing 5 people. So then you can say on your resume, it might not be in a job, but you could say in an outline at the top, I have managed people in various, projects. It doesn't have to be that you get paid for it. It's all, but we're back to that experience versus education. It's your experience, but don't lose it out of sight. Remember, that is all your wisdom. That is all of your experience. So back to you and your work that you do, how you present it on your resume for, the machines to pick up, for example, that might be in the outline at the top because you're not, and then in the volunteer opportunities. It's funny, as an HR director, but that's my qualities, I think, kind of like what matters to me is I never looked at, like, it didn't matter to me what school they went to and what education they had. But it always mattered to me. I would always look at their volunteer things that they've done. I would always look at what have they done. What makes them tick? What's important to them outside of work? And what missions, what things they engaged in, what really mattered to them. And I started conversations from that because it always connected to their heart and their fire in their belly. And then you can ask all kinds of questions and people will tell you what they probably shouldn't be telling you. But that's the part where it's like, how do you connect to people? So I always looked at that, but it's really difficult now, could be more difficult with AI scanning for the right word. So kudos go to you as you work through your, whole LinkedIn profile and all of that training. But that becomes more and more important to get a coach, you know what I mean, to just help shift things. And the same with that, it's like, it's also actually mentor or getting a coach is helping all of those skills that we talked about. That's what I work with people all the time on, is just, you acquire them by practicing and doing it. So yeah, go volunteer somewhere.
Perfect.
Go somewhere that it matters to you. Yeah, make a difference.
Perfect. Let's keep talking about job search and about the companies. What does how actually companies look for managers and how are they interviewing them? For example, I'm a company, let's say, I don't know, small company, startup, and I need a manager.
I would probably, post in various places, whether it's Indeed or whatever other job searches. And then I would look for, experience, for example, right? So if a person made it through whatever, depends on the supply and demand. Sometimes as a recruiter, you look for the person and you kind of try to like really nail. But the independent contributor to the first manager is generally people are coming to that job posting. So you kind of sorting through actually what comes into inbox. And then if you really don't have the caliber or the experience, then you go, okay, well, go look. So probably what's coming, and you're going to sort through that. And then the next thing is when you speaking to the people, right? When you get to the speaking part, it's always behavior. To me, it's always behavioral questions, always. It's behavioral questions. So that's another piece, is when you get to the interview, is own and believe in yourself and your experience and all of your experience, and know how to quantify and qualify it. Like, what does it really mean? That's one. Second is have examples. I can't tell you enough how many times people go, Well, I can't think of anything. And of anything, I actually mean I always ask for conflict in the workplace. I always ask those questions, give me an example. And I always ask as a director, if you're going to manage people, I want to know how you navigate conflict with your peers, with those who report to you, and those that you report to. And believe me, all those three things could be very different for one individual. But when I ask them for an example, and they can't give me any example, like I'll go, that's a red flag. You haven't had a difficult, if you didn't have a challenging conversation with those three groups, anybody at any time in your life or career, that's a problem for me. That means you avoid conflict and you're going to create more problems. Okay. Number two is I listen to how do you approach conflict with those who are your peers, which means you're at the same level, but then those who you have power over, those who report to you, and those who have power over you. And if the power over and those who you report to, if you give me examples and you give me actually kind of the opposite, but different, I listen. So that's another skill, people. Listen, pay attention and listen. I listen to how do you treat those that you have power over, especially in a challenging conflict situation. Do you bulldoze over them? Do you just tell them what to do? Do you not listen? Or do you actually practice empathy and you want to get a win-win and you really want to understand where the other person is? That's listening. You're listening for understanding, not to respond and not to tell them what to do. And then the same actually with the power over you, who you report to. Are you able to speak up in a professional but assertive way? Were you able to stand and be in integrity? That's the piece, particularly what I learned in HR as an HR director. I'm like the conscious of the organization in a sense. So I have to be able to talk to my boss and say, this is not ethical, for example. I can't stand behind this. We are not doing this. That is a hard conversation to have. But in order for me to be in integrity with myself and in my position, I have to be able to have those conversations. So that's a big piece for me, the behavior of the questions. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I've heard that companies are avoiding actually posting on Indeed on other job boards if they are looking for managers, and they are looking for managers within their cycle. Can you please tell me about that? Because it's kind of safe to find out someone who you potentially know, like with a mutual connection, or have recommendations, instead of post it on a job board and received a lot of applications.
So this is, I'm not surprised that's happening, but it happens to me with various positions. Like I see my coworkers before that I worked in previous roles posting internally within their network, like on LinkedIn, right? So like I just recently had a director or VP of marketing, I think right now I worked with her before. And so she just posted something for her company, but she posted it within her connections and her network.
Yes.
So this is back to what I was saying, expand your network. This is your life. These are your connections and your people. So continue expanding your network with people that you resonate with, that you relate with. It doesn't matter sometimes where they work or what they're doing. And it's not, sometimes it is with the essence and intention of, hey, I'm doing this so then I kind of my network is greater. So then when I'm moving, because I'm considering going into manager, talk to your network as well, by the way. So when you're wanting that jump between independent contributor and a manager, or a manager and director, it's back to asking for help and communicating and letting people know what you want, what you're looking for. But it happens internally. It's just like what you're confirming What I'm saying is, yeah, for the most part, people hire those that know or someone knows. It's those 6 degrees of separation, right? So like if there's 6 people, by the time you get to the 6th person, you
Mm.
kind of have your connection, and like everybody kind of like you will connect to the person you want. So on that note, be mindful who you connect yourself with, because we always, there's that saying, I think it's like, tell me who your 5 or 6 friends are and I'll tell you what kind of person you are. Yeah, pretty much. So it works for life, work, anything. Be mindful and be selective, not from like, well, you don't belong, in my world. No, but like, look, if you are surrounded by closed-minded, negative people and you wonder why you have no joy in life and work, well, don't go wondering, look around.
Yeah.
Right? So same with this. It's like you have people who are constantly learning and growing, and they're going, oh, I want to do this project, or how about this volunteer, possibility. And back to the volunteering, like you go volunteer for the cause. It's the cause that unites you. You have no idea what kind of people go to that cause. They come from all walks of life, but all experiences, all approaches. And that is how people get the work and move around, is through like, serving somebody, standing side by side with somebody else and saying, and don't be afraid to talk about what you're looking for right now. Yes, it's a vulnerable space, but unless you open your mouth and talk about it, nobody's going to know.
Yeah.
It can't help you unless
100%.
you talk about it. So you might be serving, I don't know, you're helping a triathletes, you know what I mean? They're running the marathon and you're serving them water, or electrolytes, and you're standing with another volunteer doing this. This is a super fun event and you're supporting what you believe in, but then you're talking to somebody who works in a different organization in a completely different role, and you're talking about something. And literally, guys, that does happen later when they're talking to whoever in a different department, and they watched you how full of joy and life and like what matters to you. Because generally in those conversations, we don't talk about work. We talk about, hopefully, what else matters, like just us as people. And they remember you as a person. It's like Maya Angelou said, it's not, people are not going to remember what you said, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. That's it. And then the person be like, and then connect, keep connections. I can't highlight that enough. I didn't do a good job at it like earlier in my career per se, but when you connect with people, stay connected with people. It is like it's every 6 months you just check in or find out, but like doesn't matter, work or not work, just have some kind of a connection piece to yourself. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised, as you were saying.
Perfect. Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's talk about resumes, managers'
Yeah.
resumes. Yeah, let's say that you decided to post a job on LinkedIn and you received a lot of applications. How would you select resumes for a manager? What exactly would you look for in those resumes and how to stand out?
So for me, if there's no other system that's tracking, if I'm just looking at whatever comes in, at
Let's
the
say
beginning.
like ATS system
Yep.
have already filtered it through the like experience. I don't know. Uh,
Yep.
what else, like location, and what
Sure.
else, like
Like
some
just the
keywords.
basic.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
basic
And you
keywords.
have, I don't
So
know,
I
like
am gonna look.
similar like 10
Yep.
resumes.
So
Yeah.
I'm always gonna read their cover letter. I
Oh,
always do.
really?
Yep.
Cover letter. Wow.
I actually read the cover letters because in it, I wanted to see how generic or how personal it is. And also in the cover letter for me is, how are they connecting themselves to the organization? Have they read about the organization? So they're not just saying, oh, I want, you could feel when it's generic. But did they look in the organization and picked a value or something that the organization is doing? So they've done their homework, but they hooked it. I call it a hook, but they connected it to why they're the right person for the job. So it's back to connecting the values. How are they connecting their personal values to the company values or whatever the company is doing? I always look at that. And I
If
always
there is
look,
no cover letter, I personally
listen,
don't write it because it's so
yeah,
time consuming, and especially now when you have to apply 100 I
and
don't know
jobs, yeah. So
jobs.
then in
Yeah.
that regard, then I will, if there's no cover letter, I do look at that um, outline, like the very top, where the person is writing about themselves. It's kind of like
Summary. Yeah.
a
Okay. Yeah.
summary.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
it's a summary, it's synopsis of what they're saying. And yeah, I look at that and maybe like the last couple of roles or something like that.
What exactly are you looking for in summary? How to
Same,
stand
very
out? Yeah.
similar thing. So in the summary, even though, yes, you're applying for 100 jobs, it's kind of like how to find, how to, there's a Russian word, but it's how to have something special about you. Like, what is it about you that is different? So it's back to, it's actually something that in the summary, it's like,
What
I'm
might
trying.
be? Yeah, I'm just trying to understand. So I have like
So
my strong experience, like, but my special thing about me that, like, for example, I'm a marathon runner. Yeah, not
right. So
everyone
to
is like,
me, so as a
yeah,
marathon, so literally as a marathon runner, I will get to the goal no matter how long it takes. I don't run marathons for that very
yeah,
reason. Because I was
yeah,
like, oh, it's long and tedious. And oh my God, you have. So it's like, as a marathon runner, I know what perseverance, patience, reaching a goal no matter how long it takes. I know what that means. So actually, to me, that would be ideal because I get to know a little bit about you, but I can, like, I don't run marathons, but sure, I run, or exercise. I know how hard it is. So you relating to me as a person, and then you're giving me some of the things and skills and talents as a marathon runner that you have to have to run marathons, and as many as you do, and consistency, like all of those things that I'm looking for as a leader, right? And even, you get up, you have a team. Yes, you all run on their own, but I know you, like, you show up at 5 o'clock in the morning and there's whatever, 20 of you, at least the photos I've seen, right? You all get together and you all run together to practice. That's teamwork. You
yeah,
all show up for each other.
yeah,
Sure,
run with
it's
the group.
everybody's, it's
So to
everybody's
support
personal,
each other because it's
exactly.
hard
So
to
it's
run
everybody's
alone.
personal result, but it's all together. You're
Hmm.
not practicing, you're not training on your own. So I would say that, and I practice as a group of 20, whatever, 5 days. I don't know, like it's something different because now it's just with AI and everything is so generic and so boring that, like, find something that makes you you. And in all of that, like, you're a great example, like, as we brought it up, right? There's so many attributes to a marathon runner. Like, take leadership skills and, like, you'll find 20 of them in it. Or,
Yeah,
like, the managing piece. It's like, you could say, like, as a marathon runner, whatever, like, and I did volunteer because I know you set up some events, or supported some events. So it's like, I helped with a group of people to organize. I mean, just to be like, to be motivated to get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, and go get everybody riled up and be like, okay, we're going to support this group of people, and then stand there for all day. I don't do that. Have I done other volunteer, pieces? Yes. And it's like, have I organized hundreds of people, volunteers? Those are all humans. I gotta get them to organize to create this event.
hmm,
So use that.
yeah, yeah. Perfect. So let's talk about achievements. What are you looking for in achievement part? You said that you walked through outline and also the
Oh,
last
achievements.
couple of
Mhm.
jobs.
Achievements. I think to me, it's like, I mean, I just look at the general stuff. If I'm looking, particularly for a manager, really. Oh, actually, same thing. achievements, if you have managed people and you're writing that in your example, no matter for how long, you guys, doesn't matter. Write something about it. Like, what did you do as a team? What did you help? So I'm looking for a language for you as a leader that it's not all, there needs to be that you've helped create or, build a team. And then what did the team do? It's not all you. Once you're a people manager, believe me, when things break, it's on you. But when things go well, you have to acknowledge and celebrate the team. That's how management and leadership works. When things are bad, it's yours. When things are great, they've done it. You will go a long way as a leader.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the how to frame it in the resume, because there are some rules not to use "we are the team launched this product," like "I launched this product," or like how to frame it. I built a team who launched this product successfully. Like
So
yes,
I built the team who launched this product. I worked with certain challenges. I helped work out the challenges, like inner personal challenges with the team. Or for example, if the team was the last performing team on the list, or in some ways, I was like, I helped get the team to believe in themselves. So in some ways, find a language that you do this, but how did the team benefit? Right? I'm still looking for, because yes, people, exactly, on the resume, it says that, but in the interview, trust me that at least I would be really listening for this person. How do they speak about their team? Are they speaking all about, I did this? I would even ask them sometimes directly, well, how does your team play into it? Well, they did, they did what I asked them to do, or, they followed me or something. That's not a leader I'm looking for, actually. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let's spend the next few minutes talking about bad management. Who is the bad manager, and who should not be a manager?
Yeah.
Let's talk about these qualities.
Well, we can start from who should not be manager is the person who tried from the IC to the manager and who really, really doesn't like dealing with people. That's it. If you really, really have a hard time working with people, don't be a manager, because it's going to be all people. So the qualities, the kind of, excuse me, the bad manager, how to identify one. And this is something also for us to pay attention to. We might have some of these. Doesn't make you a bad person, but it's just something that if you want to become a great manager and a leader, there's definitely things to pay attention to. So number one, I have about 5. So number one, poor communication. We're back to communication.
Ah, yeah,
That's
we
it.
kind of use like
It
reverse.
starts
Yeah.
with it. It's a great piece to have. And when you have poor communication, no, you really got to work on that, right? So that it's kind of sink or swim, really. It like makes it or breaks it. So that's number one.
Let's talk about language.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a big, huge barrier for immigrants, because they're not great. They don't have like these great communication skills like Americans or people who were born here have. What like is it the big obstacle for them to be a manager?
Yes, yes. Well, it could be, because we're social beings and we relate to people for the most part. Those of us who can hear, we relate by listening and reading people and reading their body language. So listening is one of the senses, that we incorporate. So how the person speaks, the words they use, the intention with which they speak, the manner, it all matters. It all comes together. Can they learn to show up better? Absolutely. That is definitely a skill. That is a taught skill. It's a learned skill. It's not actually as it could feel robotic at the beginning, particularly when people are from a different country and they try to adjust and it's not their prime, it's not their first language. It's like I always say, fake it till you make it. That really works. Yes, it could be robotic at the beginning and it's vulnerable. You could say that. Hey, I am practicing some things, so bear with me, but do it anyway. Nothing will come of it if you don't practice. So learning the nonviolent communication, learning the different communication styles, figuring out like learning feedback. So having, as a manager, your ability to influence and impact and have your team deliver good work is going to depend on how clear, concise you are, how well you deliver the feedback, how well you receive the feedback. That's all communication, all of it. How well you navigate challenging, conversations. And that's the part, like, we think some of it is like, oh, it's a given for some people, but for the most part, that's one of the biggest like workshops and conversations I have with leaders and teach is how to have a difficult conversation. And do I still get nervous and stuff? Yes.
Yeah.
But does it get easier with practice? Yes. So all of that is communication. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Bad communication, poor communication, micromanagement.
Ooh, that's my favorite.
Yeah, that's
Let's talk
everybody's
about
favorite,
it.
by the way. It's so interesting. I have not met anybody, myself included, who said, I love a micromanager manager. Like, seriously, I have not. Yet there are so many of them around. Like, to the point that, like, I have a client that I even just get so awestruck, like, at a very, very high level of a very, very big organization. I go, how did you get to that level of the organization? Like, her boss is such a micromanager. And I go, is this like, seriously? But yes, it exists and it's very toxic. So it is very easy from independent contributor. And that's, I think, the skill that gets stretched, because as a leader, like as a director, then you really got to learn how to delegate a lot more things. And this gets practiced as you're a manager. Like, it doesn't come. So this piece, it's not like you can't learn it in the books. Yeah, I tell you, like right now, but until it's a felt experience, you guys. And
yeah, it's a lot of psychological, some
it's a
issues.
mindset.
Yeah,
It's back
mindset.
to
Yeah,
control. It's back to
yeah,
control,
yeah,
perfectionism, like all of those things. If it's not, and it's wound tight.
yeah,
If it's not worked through and with, it's a very hard thing to be around.
yeah,
So, but it happens a lot with from the independent contributor to manager, because a lot of times you've done the work, like all of the parts and details. Or like if somebody is progressing from like a coordinator to a manager, and we sometimes kind of, I call it dive into the details, right? So dive down. So as a manager, you got to learn to come above the stuff. You're not doing things per se all the time yourself. You really got to release these knuckles and let go and delegate. So the opposite would be delegation, empowerment, and trust. You've got to work with that.
we can talk about that
I was
like
gonna say
a
those
lot.
topics
So
we can
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about forever.
I think we need like a separate episode about like bad qualities. Like let's walk through
Absolutely.
all of
Yeah.
them
So number
briefly.
three is lack of empathy. So that would be you don't understand where the other person is coming from. You don't care. You don't feel, actually. You don't know what to do with it. All of this is, I don't know what it is, doesn't help. So when you cannot be in the shoes of other, you don't have to. That's another piece about empathy, I think, and empathy and let's put empathy is with the people mix. You don't have to agree with the person. You don't have to change your mind. But can you understand where the other person is coming from. Compassion, that was the word I was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
So it's empathy and compassion. Compassion to me, it's kind of empathy with an action. Is that, do I understand where they're coming from, and can I do something about it? Or it doesn't have to be you need to do something. It's that it's an action. It's empathy kind of in action. You're listening to them, you're empathizing, you're maybe brainstorming, just various ways. So that's a part when there's lack of empathy and compassion. That's a hard one. I mean, seriously, like, so that was number 3. Number 4 for the manager, inconsistency. You change your mind all the time. No, that does not work for your team, for the organization, for people around you. You create chaos. That is actually another form of control. And that happens with people, is that it creates chaos. And so people, you control it that way. So that's the part that you want to pay attention to. And the last one is failure to develop others. You're not working on empowering and developing your team. You as a manager, that is your function as well, is develop others. Just like you want it to be developed, it's the same thing. Develop others. It's really important.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you so much. So maybe at the end of our conversation, you can give some advice to anyone who wants to become a manager right now or looking for this transition, some few words from you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. As we spoke, I think find what's important to you and drive that. So it's your life. So the first thing to remember, this is your one precious life. How you spend it at work and outside of the work really makes a difference. So if you can combine those things in some ways and don't decouple them, speak about it in various ways, and prioritize yourself. Prioritize how you want to grow and how you want to learn. If it's in the same organization, great. But if it's not, don't be afraid to go somewhere else. Just don't lose the sight of your skills and talents, and keep learning. There's so many ways to find the tools and skills and continue learning. So yeah, whether you go to courses, whether you look at things on YouTube, whether you watch something, just keep learning. That's really, really important.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Tatyana. And you mentioned that you're running your course, the next cohort in September, right?
Yeah, so I'm starting my next cohort September 5th on Confidence Catalyst. And then just as in terms of resources, I do LinkedIn Live on LinkedIn every month at the end of the month. So that's free. Come attend, look at that, and the newsletter. So do those things. Again, those are free. They're just, they come to you. You could read on things, you can try them on, practice them.
Yeah, perfect. I will leave all the information, links on your profiles in the description to this video. Thank you so much, Tatyana, again. And for me, I personally understand that if you love people or if you're interested in people, do that. If you don't, don't do that. Yeah, that's like my main outcome.
Exactly.
Yeah, my main outcome. From this conversation, super insightful, super interesting conversation. And I think that we should keep talking about it, especially digging deeper into bad management qualities, especially micromanagement, inconsistency, failure to develop others, all those things that we discussed previously. So if you're looking for a job in the US and you need a perfect resume, LinkedIn profile, or train for the next interview, please visit my website, adanaumova.com, for more information. And definitely share this video on your social media. Share it with friends who might be interested in. And of course, subscribe to the channel and don't just press the like button, of course. That's all for now, and see you in the next episode. Thank you so much.